My name is Matt Pendergrass, and this is James Barnes. Tonight I'll be introducing Max Whitemeyer and Derek Wallace. Max Whitemeyer, he graduated from Oklahoma State School of Entrepreneurship in 2011. During this time he started two companies that are in still operation today. One is Zadok Supply, which works in packaging material distribution, and the second is Styro Insulations, a manufacturer of 100% recycled insulation for residential homes and commercial buildings. Please help me welcome Max Whitemeyer. Next is Derek Wallace. Mr. Wallace is the founder of the Juvo Group, a web development firm located in Stillwater, Oklahoma. He leads a talented team of people to apply their expertise to solve a diverse set of problems posed by the various clients, from simple websites to full-scale enterprise web applications. Juvo Group's priority is to serve their clients with integrity, experience, and excellence. Mr. Wallace graduated from Oklahoma State University in 2000 with a bachelor's in computer engineering. He worked as an intern turned engineer at Nomadics, now FLIR, for 5 years before embarking on his journey that made the way for the beginning of his initial work as an independent engineering consultant. While Mr. Wallace's degree is computer engineering, his programming expertise is mostly self-taught. He has been programming for 20 years and acquired proficiency in many different low, and high-level languages. The bulk of his experience lies in client-side software development, but that has shifted in the past few years, and he has applied his client-side experience to develop a user-friendly web application. Please help me welcome Mr. Derek Wallace.
Okay, I'm going to introduce Shoaib Shaikh and Johnson Bailey. Shoaib Shaikh is the co-founder and CEO of ExpoSafe, a provider of critical safety solutions for homeland security and chemical safety. The products range from explosive detection products and solvent safety and explosive training aids for canines. They were established in June of 2009, and it is the first student-faculty startup to successfully commercialize university technologies from OSU. They've been awarded millions of dollars in state and federal contracts over the past 12 months, and he said that there's a big announcement that he got today that I'll let him go into more depth over. They've established distribution relationships in Canada, Spain, Portugal, Switzerland, Nigeria, and India. ExpoSafe was selected as the finalist for the 2011 Most Promising New Business in the State of Oklahoma by the Oklahoma Venture Forum. And they currently employ 5 people, but plan on expanding earlier next year. Shoaib graduated from OSU with a bachelor's in business administration finance in 2006 and an MBA in 2009. Please help me welcoming Shoaib. Johnson Bailey started the original Man Candle in 2009 after using it as a project in his Intro to Entrepreneurship class. He was featured on ABC television show Shark Tank once and is going back again very soon. Right now, they currently have 23 varieties of candles in over 2,000 stores worldwide. They started out, him and his wife, in the garage. And in 2009, his project earned him the Student Entrepreneur of the Year from OSU, and he graduated with a marketing major from Oklahoma State University, Tulsa. Please help me in welcoming Johnson Bailey.
Thanks, guys. Okay, what I'd like to start with is to ask each of you to take a few moments, if you would, and tell us your story. Tell us the story of your venture. But if you could focus on sort of the personal issues that surrounded when you started the venture, and why you decided to start it when you started. Why don't we start with you, Max?
Okay. Well, I initially came up with the idea of Styro Insulations. I was redoing some homes here in Stillwater, and I was drinking out of a Sonic cup. And I was putting insulation in the walls, and I took a lunch break, and I was drinking this cup, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, why couldn't we reuse styrofoam for insulations in walls? And I wrote it in a notebook. And a couple months later, I had a business planning class with Professor Webb. and decided to write a business plan over it. And Cale Heyer was in that class. And so we wrote the business plan, and it got well reviewed. And from there, the next semester was the business plan, Riata business plan competition. And we're like, well, hey, let's go for it. Let's see what we can do. So the spring semester, we had Lindsay and Jody Navarre, and we prepared for this business plan competition. We actually got invited to go to the national competition in Nebraska. Didn't do very good. Actually got shot down pretty hard. And then learned from our mistakes and ended up winning the Riata business plan competition. And that was the point where we're like, okay, we just won this money.
So you can attest there really was $25,000.
Yes, there was. Yeah, you don't get to keep your big check though. We were kind of bummed out. But so that was a decision we all had to make because Cale and I just graduated, and it was kind of like, okay, are we going to move on and pursue this, or are we going to are we going to move on and pursue this, or are we going to split different ways and try something else? I don't know. And so we decided to go for it, and it was a really big commitment, and we used the money as wisely as we possibly could, we think, with the help of faculty and people that have been in this situation before. And now we're have a facility, we're making sales, and we're fully operational. And I think that decision to go now, because obviously, like Morris said, we felt like we had nothing to lose. There was no strings attached, except I just got married, so that's kind of...
Yeah, you got married a couple weeks ago.
That's
so
kind of a string.
Pending marriage.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so I made the decision with the marriage, and but luckily it's in Dallas, so we plan to actually open up a large facility in Dallas really soon. And
Does she have a day job?
Yes, she does. She supports me constantly. No. But yeah, so and it's taken off, and it's going to be exciting to see where we go. Not only this next month until the end of the year, but the beginning of next year.
And so Cale and Lindsay are your partners in the venture.
Yes. Yeah.
And somehow you probably large amounts of wine convinced them.
Kind of, yeah. Smoke and mirrors. So IOUs. No, I'm kidding. No, they. Let me tell you, I'm all about. I could not have done it without the team. There's no way. Just the amount of work, the different knowledge, bases of knowledge. Like I have no clue how to wire a 420 into a wall like Cale does. I probably would have killed myself.
So the two of you have both decided to forego career alternatives to do this. Shweta?
So my story starts in 2008. 2008, the CIE Scholars is a scholarship program at OSU through the School of Entrepreneurship. This was right before the School of Entrepreneurship started at OSU. So CIE Scholars used to be called MBA Scholars, and I was one of these scholarship recipients. As a part of this program, what you do is you get selected, you apply for this process, you get selected, and then you get paired with two other team members, and you write a business plan for technology on campus. I'm sure there's some people in the crowd too, or CIE scholars that are doing it right now. And we were one of a class, we have a small team, it was me and two other partners, and we were given this cool technology about that could be used to detect explosives. So we write a business plan for that technology, and as a part of that business plan process, the School of Entrepreneurship sent us to San Diego to a national business plan competition, and this is all this is right when Dr. Morris got here, Nola got here, so we were trying to, we were getting good information, but this was still, we hadn't had enough time to get this information in, so our business plan, which we thought was one of the best business plans you'd see, was one of the worst that she would ever read. And we went to San Diego, and San Diego, of course, it was true. The business plan was not good enough to be placed there, not good enough to be placed in the final round. So it was a
So
bad.
there's a theme here. Going to national business plan competitions and losing leads to venture creation.
In this case, I mean, you get arrogant because you don't make it to the final day, and you think your plan is good, you think your technology is good. The judges say that the application is great, the product's good, we like what you're telling us, but we can't support you because you guys are not committed to the venture. So on a way back, three of us are talking, and just I guess out of defeat, we're like, you know what? If we had said that we were partners in this company, we would have made the final round. And if we had made the final round, maybe we would have won that competition. So we're talking to each other, and of course, you want smart talk when you're talking with each other, and then we come back and say, let's see if we can actually do this venture. Let's see if we can commit to this, see if we can pursue this. And this is our final semester in the MBA program. So all three of us are graduating that semester. We come back, we go to Dr. Morris's office, and we sit down, and we're like, Dr. Morris, we didn't place, but this is what we're thinking. We want to commit. We want to commit to this venture. We want to start this venture. And Dr. Morris, he says, have a seat. This is good. Tell me more. How you, and we talk. And then Dr. Morris, the first advice we get is like, it's a bold step. It's a great step. But I'm going to be really honest with you. There's going to be a lot of shitty days. You guys will hate each other. You guys need to think through this process. But if you're committed, the school and the center will support you. We will do what we can to make sure that you guys benefit from it and the venture grows. And so it started. So the venture started in March, but we were still in school, so we were working some, going to classes. Officially, the venture started the day we graduated from MBA. So May 8th, we had a graduation. We were out on the strip, of course, after graduation, and we said, okay, Monday morning when you wake up, you're going to show up to campus and we start working on this venture. We show up Monday morning, we start working, and it started from there. But over the next 3 months, from May to July, we lost one of our partners. She had some of the commitments, and it was evident to everybody that it's going to be a while before the venture makes any money. So we lost the first partner. 2 more months into it, we lost the second partner, and comes October, I'm the only one sitting, and with the venture. And we have two other partners too. We have two chemistry professors at OSU who are co-founders in the venture. But most of the work was to be done on the business side. The technology is there, they can make the product, but we need to come up with a plan and a model to sell this. So that's where we started, and over the last 2 years, we've been very fortunate to expand our portfolio to 7 products across 2 markets. We've had global distribution now, we have sales. We've been really, really good in getting some funding. We've raised over $1.4 million in contract work over the last 12 months, and the company has grown. So from 3 of us, now we've hired 2 more people, and we are looking at hiring maybe 3 more people by January.
Good. So in your instance, you went to this competition basically presenting somebody else's idea. You came back from the competition, you went to that scientist and negotiated an equity position with the understanding that you'd start and do all the business stuff and they would do the science stuff.
That's great.
So here's a different story, right?
My name is Johnson Bailey. My story begins at OSU Tulsa. I was in an intro to entrepreneurship class. Wasn't quite the traditional college student. I was a little bit older. I was already married, had a mortgage. So, Dr. Morris was talking about life path. I was already on that. I had a career in the mortgage industry. And for you, those that follow the mortgage industry in 2008, 2009, that was a really rough time. And companies were going belly up. Almost every mortgage company was laying off faculty and staff monthly, and my company I worked for was no different. I was in a sales marketing position, and those often hit the chopping block early. So I decided to go back to school, finish my degree, and try to hedge my bets. In one of my classes I took the first semester I was back was that intro to entrepreneurship class, and we had to write a business plan. So my story kind of starts as Max's with a business plan. I didn't have a lot of time to dedicate something that was really in depth. I came up with an idea to do that. This is kind of a novelty joke concept me and some of my friends had for interesting smelling candles. That we'd sit around, watch a football game, and we'd be just having a casual conversation. We'd always joke about stuff, and one of the things we joked about was, guys don't have candles. candles are for girls. That we want some manly scents to put in the house, and that's kind of where the concept started. So during that class, when I was writing my business plan, not only was I trying to get a grade, but I was also doing real, research to think that this might be something I wanted to start. There was no competition at the time. There was no prize money. There was no real goal for me to try to achieve other than really just trying to bootstrap this company and get it going. So we started the company in our garage, or actually our spare bedroom first, and it was a little melting pot that we bought, some chemicals, some fragrances. It probably looked like a meth lab. I've never seen a meth lab. But I was always very nervous when people came over to the house. They walked down our hall to go to the bathroom. They seen there's scales and there's vials and bottles and stuff. It smells weird. It's like, what do you do? No, it's like, we're making candles. Like, I've never smelled candles like that before. Like, right. So that's where it started. We had a big moving day to our garage a couple months later.
From the bedroom to the garage.
From the bedroom to the garage, yeah. I took my little pot and walked it nicely from a 4-foot folding table to a 6-foot folding table. We put up some shelves and we grew, we doubled, and we thought that was a big step. We'd started picking up some clients that were buying the product and they were reordering. One of our first products that we sold, we didn't. A lot of you probably know of our fart scented candle, which is ridiculous, and it's our top seller, but that was our real driving force to get out of the house. My wife did not like us manufacturing that, 20 feet from our kitchen. So kind of curbed the appetite a little bit, after a hard day's work. And we decided that, we didn't want to, talking about risk management, we stayed in our house as long as we could. We didn't want to take on the overhead and the burden of having a large manufacturing facility, employees, utilities, all that stuff. We wanted to make sure that the product was going to work and be viable, because at the end of the day, it was a very fringe product. I mean, we didn't know. We were the first ones to do it. Nobody had ever tried to develop a pot roast scented candle before, let alone, there was no sales data to compare it to say, okay, is this going to work or not? We really threw it up against the wall and see if it would stick. We did research, the best we could before the product came out, focus groups. We talked to a lot of store owners and tried to get their feelings of what they felt about a product like that. But it really wasn't until we took it to market, until we really saw that there was an interest for it. But our biggest hurdle we had was getting notoriety and getting stores to notice us and getting the demand of the customer base. We were very fortunate in 2009. I put an application in for a television show that was just really taking off called Shark Tank on ABC. It was a reality show that matched up entrepreneurs and inventors with already seasoned venture capitalists and entrepreneurs themselves. And they throw you in this Shark Tank, and you have to battle out between them to try to negotiate a deal. In 2009, we were only at about, say, 75 stores at the most. We didn't have very much going for us. I really needed the capital for the show, or from Shark Tank. So we put our application in. We kept our fingers crossed, but we never heard anything. It was a year almost to the day that we were sitting up at the Tulsa State Fair where we got a phone call from a casting director and asked us 2 questions. She said, please don't take this the wrong way, but are you still in business? So I was like, yes, we're still in business. And then they asked if we still had any interest in coming on the show. Absolutely. So through a process of some due diligence and some decision making from some various levels of Mark Burnett's casting team, we were awarded a spot on the show. They flew us out to LA and we filmed the show, and it went on the air. We, for those of you that haven't seen it, we did not get a deal. I took the position on the show as more of a advertising strategy rather than trying to get the money, because by the time we went on the show a year later, we had built our store count up to about 500 stores, and it was self-sufficient at that point. We just needed that shot in the arm, to get the national exposure. We got it. We were one of the top-rated episodes of the season when it originally aired in May. They re-aired us 3 times throughout the course of this year. And in the summer, during our show season, the casting coordinators contacted me again and asked if they could come back and film a follow-up with me for season 3.
I watched the episode. They actually had a fart candle. The judges are sitting there smelling.
Oh yeah, I passed those around to them. Yeah, no pun intended. But they were awfully shocked by it. You know, you've got Mark Cuban, uber billionaire, sitting there smelling my fart candle. A little victory right there. But, yeah, it was interesting stuff. But Damon John, the FUBU founder, one of the Shark panelists, he actually contacted me and ordered some of the candles. He wanted to give out as gifts, even though he didn't really feel like investing in it. He thought it was a good enough gag gift to give to some of his friends. He ordered the fart candle and our roadkill scented candle. So we sent those out to him. But we're excited. We'll be back on in season 3, and that really gave us the exposure we needed. We had about 20 million viewers that saw it, and that really created the customer demand. We went from 500 when we filmed, we're over 2,000 now, and Father's Day 2012 is really when we're going to blow open the majors market. We're probably going to go from 2,000 stores, probably closer to 8,000, 10,000 stores, and we already have some verbal commitments from some of those companies, but we don't celebrate till we get the PO. So we're.
How do you capture roadkill smell?
There's a lot of it between Tulsa and Stillwater. It's a dead skunk scented candle, and you'd be surprised how many people say they love that smell. And women just as much as men, if not more. They go, "Oh, I love the smell of a dead skunk." Really? And they actually burn it in their house. I can't believe it. I'd never light one, but there's just some weirdos out there that just think that their house smelling like a dead skunk is the best thing since sliced bread. But that's...
Before we leave your story, you skipped over a key part of it when you almost dropped the idea after going into a Hallmark store. Can you tell us that story?
Sure. We talk about, earlier in the lecture about failure and facing failure. And, our product was very prone to that, and I did face that. We had a local Hallmark in Broken Arrow, where I'm from, right outside Tulsa. And I went in there one day. We had a couple, it was very early in the company. We only had a couple stores that carried the product, but I wanted to hit the big leagues. So I went to this Hallmark. I had my football scented candle in one hand and my garage scented candle in the other. Went into their store, asked to speak to the manager. I pitched them the product, just like I had the other 2 stores that bought the product. She looked me right in the eye and pretty much told me it was the stupidest product that she had ever seen. That she didn't think it would sell in the store, and asked me to leave. And that was in front of customers, during the business day. It was pretty humiliating to take something that you've worked so passionately on and you put everything into, and for someone just to look you in the eye and tell you that it's bad. So I smiled and I told her thank you for her time. I turned on, I walked out the door, and I got in my car and I left. And in between that store and the next Hallmark on the same road literally was my house. I live in a neighborhood right in between these 2 stores. They're 5 miles apart. And as I was driving down the road, I was feeling pretty bad, and it would have been really easy for me. The easy way out would have been to turn into my neighborhood, go home, turn on my Xbox or put in a movie, feel sorry for myself, and chalk it up as, well, maybe it is a bad idea, maybe it won't work. But I persevered, I sucked up, those emotions, and I drove on to that next Hallmark store, to give the very same pitch and very possibly, suffer that very same defeat and humiliation. I got to that store, I took in the same 2 candles, I gave the same pitch, and the manager loved it. She put me up a meeting with their regional buyer that next day in Midwest City. And I talked to the buyer, and she asked for a lot of things that I had no idea what they were. She was SKU numbers. I didn't have any SKU numbers. I was like, what's a SKU number? It shows how prepared I was for that sales call. So I go home, I go on Google and Wikipedia, I'm trying to find all this stuff out right before the meeting, and I put together the presentation. I went in there, I nailed it, and the store, they put it in 10 stores. and they're still in those 10 stores now, and we just shipped out a reorder to one of them yesterday. You know, this was back in 2009. So, you know, if I hadn't have done that, I mean, look how much opportunity I had lost. Look how much business I would have lost. We're now in over 400 Hallmark stores across the country. And the reason why we're in those now is because of that building block with that first company. I didn't know this at the time, but the company that I walked into, the Jay's Hallmark brand, is one of the most well-respected independent Hallmark chains in the country. And the clout that carried with my product in there, and that it actually had some sales records, has opened up. For me, I will be in the Edge Buying group in the spring, which is one of the groups I was talking about. It's 3,000 Hallmark stores. And I would have not got that 3,000 Hallmark store count for Father's Day next year if I had not have done that. So the ramifications of that action are still being unfolded. And I don't know where the ceiling is, but I know that it was life-changing, you know, being able to suck it up and go.
Okay, now Derek, you didn't start right out of school. You had a little different path.
A little different. And you know, it's interesting as I'm listening to all these, if I can just make an observation, you know, it seems like we're ordered properly here. And I'm always amazed at how well you guys select the people that you guys select for panels and judges and teams and all that stuff. But so, you know, all these guys, you know, we have this aha moment, puts together the business plan, and we have, you know, there's the idea, and then there's kind of a more of a process, and then even more, you know, small beginnings and kind of growing into it. And I normally start my story at one point, but I'll actually take it back a little bit further, just to emphasize this point. I was working and being at a Pneumatics. I was a successful engineer. They were grooming me for management. I worked there through college, and then I was working full time after I graduated. But I just got to a point where I just, you know, I read this maybe a year ago, but Rich Dad Poor Dad, I don't know if you guys have read that, but he had that expression, you know, the best way to stop working for money is to stop working for money. Well, I'd never read this book, but that's what my passion was. So I actually quit that full-time job. I didn't have an aha thing to do, but it's just, I don't want to be locked into this. I don't want to be here 10 years down the road. So I went from professional engineer to ditch digger, fence builder, you know, all this stuff. And so to learn that, you know, that to be comfortable at the bottom and to be comfortable that, hey, it's not so bad. Like, you know, my security and my trust where I'm at isn't in that paycheck. And so, anyway, so I went through digging ditches, building fences, and then started doing independent engineering consulting, you know, things like that. And so that started to grow, and then from there, I had to decide, and this is usually where I start my story. But so I did engineering consulting, and then as I started, you know, develop my networks, as my network grew more and more, you know, there was a lot of web work that started to try to come in, people needing web work, and so I was pushing away for a long time. The consulting work was very lucrative. You know, it was very nice. I could just put in 40 hours, have plenty of extra spending cash. And then, you know, it was just good lifestyle type business working out of the home. But eventually I made the decision to go ahead and grow. And so I had a computer friend, buddy of mine, that was willing to take on work on the side. And so I formed the Juvo Group in 2008. So we're 3 years old now, this past October. But started growing it, started making concerted efforts to actually, you know, formalize how we're approaching, you know, the website market and stuff like that. And then we got the office space downtown. That was a huge step because, you know, here I'm low leverage, you know, just on the floor. So the $500 a month lease was just daunting. But it's just continued to grow from there. And so now we've moved into an even bigger space downtown, and our clients have just grown. And it's been really neat to see. You know, we first started out doing these really small websites, and we've developed our framework to where, you know, so if I do a photo gallery for this person, then I can take that same code and plug it in for the next guy. So that's where we can start making a profit. And so we've done all these different websites, and then we've developed all these different modules into our little toolkit, our treasure chest. And So now if somebody comes along and it's something we've already done, we can whip it up together and still charge relatively the same price. And so that's where we can start being more and more profitable. And so we're at the moment now to where we've done all these different websites. We have this tool chest, and now we're looking to go from doing these more custom websites to more mainstream, higher volume, and things like that. So, but at the end of the day, you know, what you touched on is, you know, looking at, well, what is the worst that can happen? And so I started from that, and I always remember where that is, because when the tough times do come, you know, if you realize there's not that far to fall, and it's not that bad, I've been there, then, you know, just, it gives you courage, you know, to strip away that fear, and to, you know, it helps keep you being able to focus on what you need to focus on, rather than focusing on arbitrary, random fears. So it's been fun, and the end result for me is I get to serve my community. We're the Juvo group. Juvo means to serve, so I get to do what I love. So I tell people I'm retired because I don't work for money anymore. I'm just wanting to do what I love, and that's what I get to do. And so that's my story.
Retired to a 15-hour-a-day job.
I work my butt off, but yeah, I'm retired.
Let me, Derek, be sure I get this timeline right. You
Okay.
got your degree in 2000.
Yes,
You had been working at the company while going to school.
yes.
And so how many years after graduating did you just walk away?
It was. This will be a fun story if I have a great moment. When I decided to make the decision, it was December 31st, 2001. So that day, I you know, finally walked in.
So this is like the
this is the day.
penultimate New Year's Eve resolution.
Yeah. It had nothing to do with New Year's Eve. It was just like, hey, this is the day. Well, so I go looking for my boss, and he's always hard to find, and I couldn't find him. So I'm like, well, what do? You know, like I know that I'm going to be getting my 2 weeks notice today. So I go into my office. We just finished up some projects. You know, it was a really great time too, you know, with respect to where my career was. But I was just getting my personal files together. I didn't really know what to do until I talked to him. So I didn't know if he was just going to tell me to leave right then or what. So at 4:30, he comes by my office. That's unprecedented. So I'm sitting there. Oh, hey, Joel. You know, I wanted to talk to you. You know, he's, oh yeah, okay, great. Well, you know, put that on the shelf one sec. We want to just let you know that we're really happy with what you've been doing here, and we want to let you know in a substantial way. He hands me an envelope with my name on it. He's like, you know, you're doing a great job, and we look forward to this next year. What was it you wanted to talk about? So I'm looking around for the reality TV cameras, and I'm thinking, what in the world? So, and after I told him, he says, okay, well, we can kind of work out the semantics of, you know, how this will look. And I said, you want your check back? You know, he said, no, you keep it. But so yeah, 2000 December 31st, 2001 is when I gave my 2 weeks. And so mid-January 2002 is when I, you know, that first day.
It was like a 6-year period there before you started the Juvo Group.
Yeah. So there was so from 2002 to 2005 was kind of the really dry period. You know, that was, you know, just scraping along the bottom. And then 2005 is when the consulting work started. So 3 years of, you know, just menial labor and enjoying that. And then, and I actually look back on that, and I look at it with great fondness, because it's, you know, running, you know, all these different things, trying to get everything go in the right place, and there really is a lot of peace there. So it's, you know, I always want to make sure that I don't lose sight of what my mission is. But so 3 years there, and then 2005 to 2008 was consulting, and then 2008 to present is Juvo.
So let me just make sure I get this personal stuff right. You got married 3 months after starting the business.
Yeah.
You don't have a spouse. Probably never will. And you were already married when you started the
For 6 years.
been married for 6 years. And Derek, you,
I've been married twice.
so that's like our guest from the insurance company.
That's right.
So where were you spouse-wise when you started the business?
Okay. when I started JUCO Group, I was actually dating my second wife, and we got married, and then that didn't work out. My first wife was actually, we got married July 7th, 2001. So I quit my job, that following January. So that was a big, so here I am, a newlywed, $1,500 in bills a month, and it's, we're going to make this happen. And financially it was working, but that wasn't the reason for the marriage situation. So divorce.
Right. So I want to start these questions a little differently. Who's thinking about starting a business? Okay. You're thinking about starting a business.
Eventually.
Who's thinking about maybe starting it right now? You are? Okay. What do you think about starting?
Construction company.
Okay, construction company. And you're graduating,
20.
okay. Should he start it right out of school or should he wait? Go do something else for somebody else for a while?
It's not right now. Start working on it. I mean, what do you have to lose? See, the beauty of being in college, being in the position you're in, is you can talk to people, you can go to Dr. Morse's office, you can go to the Riata Center, get resources from there, you can talk to other successful people, they can connect you to other successful people in the line of business you want to do. You can keep failing. I mean, as long as you're in school, you fail. There's no, right now your lifestyle is you don't have enough expenses, and you can experiment, you can fail with your mold, and you will succeed one day when you get the mold right. Doesn't mean that all the models you build will fail. You could make the first model and be successful at it. So the beauty of being in college and having all the resources around you, having the liberty of failing, makes it the best opportunity or best time to start your business.
Don't even think about it, let's just go for it.
Let's go for it.
Okay, what are the rest of you guys?
I kind of have a different view on it, that I've started 2 companies, or 3 companies, I've failed 2 of them, that, and the first 2 failed due to mainly, capital. You get to a point to where you have a good idea and you have a good plan for it, but you need to be able to be scalable and to be able to actually, execute on those opportunities that come around. Because when they do, if you don't have the capital to produce them, that really starts a slippery slope. If you can team up with the right type of people and you can make connections, through the process of either bringing on a partner who has the funding or be able to, slowly scale yourself up, to where you don't have to have the capital funding. Construction is one of those things where, you do have to have some upfront money. It's very lucrative. I think my brother-in-law is starting a construction company, and that was his big challenge in the beginning, because he'd get all these side jobs, because he worked for a construction company, and he'd get these side jobs that his big company didn't want to do. And he found himself in situations where, okay, well, what happened? You have to be able to answer the question, what happens if somebody doesn't pay me? And I've got, subcontractors, I've got people that are working for me, and I have to, they're relying on me to pay them. As long as you have your financial ducks in a row and you have, the answer to that capital question, I still you got to, do it.
Every opportunity, there's no right answer to this question. There really isn't. Just as with every opportunity, it's about balancing all the different factors and weighing them all in. But one thing I'd like to point out is that the matter of experience and credibility, it is kind of a chicken before the egg, a catch-22. Because how do you get the experience without, people giving you business, and how do you get the business without the credibility and experience? And so, but right now, college is an opportunity. Our culture is very familiar with the college startup success story. And so, even if you were just at a regular, normal college, there is that, that kind of has some, you have that card you can play. So people that you're talking to, they oh, okay, this could be that success story. And so that's something that you can leverage. But you're not just at any normal university, you're at OSU where they have an entrepreneurship program that draws lots of attention. So that really amplifies that card for you. So this is a great opportunity to be able to get some momentum past that experience hurdle. Not to encourage you to drop out of class, or that is leveraged when you're staying connected with the program and things like that, of course. But that's a really big tool that, because once you graduate, the effects of that wear off very quick, and then you're kind of in a dry land, an in-between place where, okay, you're young, you're not that college success story, and then, so there's an in-between. So now is a good time, and I think that's kind of what you've done. You've really played that card. I mean, I think that's worked out really well for you, and I think that's probably helped with you as well. But so anyway, so don't underestimate that. So not just the resources of the program, but even just how, the dream and hope that it can play and to overcome that challenge.
Yeah, definitely to add on that, like, not only the resources of the program, but the help you can find elsewhere, like, take construction, for example, and this is kind of how we started out, because, I wouldn't say we weren't construction, but, we sell to, home builders, contractors, etc. It's just call them up. Most of the time, they'll tell you everything they know. If you just ask and say, oh, I'm a student, I'm writing a business plan over construction. Oh, okay, I'll tell you everything about the company. How about you come by the, our facility? We're building a house, such and such. I can show you everything. And I think it's all about building that foundation. And if you feel like you have enough resources, knowledge, funding to actually lay a foundation to start a company on in college, I'd go for it. Yeah, like no fear, just go for it. And stuff's going to happen. Like, for example, we had no clue what, product liability insurance was. And, stuff happens that you don't know, you didn't foresee, and just work around that. Don't give up, just because one thing went wrong.
So, in retrospect, how much was your decision to start a business when you started it an emotional decision as opposed to a careful, rational choice?
My decision to start Original Man Candle, I think, started as an emotional motivation. I went back to school for emotional reasons, and I took that class for emotional reasons. As I wrote that business plan, and I really started to investigate that industry, learn it, find the holes in it, find where I could realistically position myself to give myself the best chance. I think that's when the shift started, from the emotional to the, well, there actually might be something here. And I would say for me it was about 50-50. And when I went into it, and the more I went, the more I spent time developing my business plan and did my focus groups and built prototypes, the emotional factor in it went way down, and at that point I was motivated through, okay, this is real.
Yeah, and especially, like, I think mine was, I wrote the business plan, and then getting the support from the faculty, we were like, oh, this can really work, we actually could sell people styrofoam that, we chewed up. Then it became, I think it's still emotional even to this day. I mean, I'm very passionate about our product, but, I don't think the emotion ever fades away. And if it does, then, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't be in it anymore or something. So.
I think the first stage where you think about you want to really, the trigger was definitely an emotional trigger for us. Losing that business plan competition. The trigger was definitely an emotional trigger, but the decision was based on rational information. The feedback we received, we have a business plan which we know to some extent is manageable, achievable. Going back to what I know now over the last 2 years, and listening to different speakers and getting more knowledge on this topic, you realize that entrepreneurs are risk managers. not risk takers. So the goal always is to manage risk, get information, rationalize it, make sure, and that's why you avoid the pitfall of destroying yourself if you lose, if you fail bad. Because you know the risk you're taking is managed, and you know what the consequences are going to be if you fail. So it's more rational, but the trigger, of course, was emotional.
I'd say mine was mostly rational. I've had lots of ideas where I'm just like, man, this is the idea that can change the world. I remember I had a Lego motor and I hooked it up to a 9-volt battery, and I had another motor on the other side, and then it had gears, and I measured the voltage on the other side, and 9 volts in and 12 volts out. Oh my gosh, 12 millivolts. 12 millivolts. So and that's when I understood units. But so I've had that, oh my gosh, this is going to change the world. I've got to drive this home, But, understanding the history of my story, it was just, okay, there's this business come in, I'm going to make this concerted decision. So it was a very rational base, and I think that gave me a perspective in that whole process that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Because, so I file my LLC paperwork, I pay the $100, I get my articles of organization, and then I just draw up an operating agreement, and just the reality that this business, that any business is just vapor. I mean, it's just paper, and that the only thing that really made my business was me, or the people in the business, and the people buying into the business. That's what made a business a business. It wasn't the paper, it wasn't the logo, it wasn't the business card, the letterhead, all that stuff, or the storefront, or the office space, or the desks, or whatever. It was me and whoever would be on the team and the people buying into it. That's what made the business. If I had started the business off one of my very passionate ideas, I might have been tempted to think that the idea and that the goodness of the idea was the heart and the substance of the business. But it's not.
Okay. Now, at the time you started your respective businesses, did you have any kind of life plan? Any kind of picture of the path beyond, I'm thinking about starting this business?
I was going to get married, but yeah, that was a life plan. But I thought, okay, well, wherever I move, there's styrofoam from everywhere, so we could just have the biggest, insulation manufacturer in the country. I figured the business could just move with me. That was kind of my goal, but that's really the only life plan I had.
Well, my life plan was I was a typical student. When I was graduating, job opportunities were not that many. I mean, there was a very bleak future for a MBA graduate who was international, because not many companies will hire international students. I
can tell you in Schwaib's case, we probably haven't actually taught him anything. All we've managed to do is get him to talk a little slower. Once he slowed down and people understood him, he started having lots of
the life plan essentially was to build a career, but the track was not clear. And when you look at the opportunity, launching the business versus going and finding a job, in this case, and it might surprise a lot of people, launching a business had a lower risk than looking for a job, and it just fit, it just worked.
Lower risk.
Lower risk in my case, because not many people will hire international students with MBAs from certain university, and it just not many opportunities at that time. And MBA is not a specialization. It's not science. It's not engineering. So visas, work visas, there's an issue with that too. So when you factor all these in, risk is lower in starting a venture when I control a lot of the variables. That means time, effort. Of course, sales and customers are the other variable but I can manage that. I can manage that more effectively than interviewing and looking for opportunities and getting a job.
In fact, it's probably the penultimate example of leveraging. For an international student to get a permanent job in the United States, you got to get a company to sponsor you and get you an H-1B visa. In Schweib's case, his own company that he started sponsored him to get his own H-1B visa. Life plan?
Yeah, I had a life plan. Yeah. That I was in the mortgage industry for 3 years. And, married, mortgage, all that jazz. And everybody thought I had lost my mind. That my company thought I was crazy because even though there were lots of layoffs, my position was pretty firm. I threw myself a going away party, and they knew that I didn't really have anything else lined up other than pot roast candles. So they're like, okay, you're leaving your salary position, you're throwing yourself a going away party. Bill just got fired, and now off you go. And my family came from an entrepreneurial background, and that's all I knew growing up. So that really shaped my decisions and I think my desires in life. My wife, on the other hand, her family was the furthest thing from an entrepreneurial family. Her dad, her grandfather, her brothers, they all worked 9-to-5 jobs. The concept to them of leaving a job like that and going into business for yourself blew their mind. They probably thought, well, they did tell me I was crazy. I'm sure they told my wife, he'll leave this loser. He's going to make hot roast candles. He's lost his mind. But I changed my outlook on life, and I changed kind of like what you were talking about, what makes you happy. And we've been able to experience a lot of really neat things, and we've been able to do things that we would have never been able to do if we were tied down to our day job. And it was the biggest decision in that whole aspect. We were more worried about the life plan change or delay than the money, the perception from family or friends, or the fact of losing. It was the change that scared us the most, but we overcame it, and it's worked out.
Derek, did you share?
Yeah, life plan. My life plan is, there's these people that are very goal-oriented, and they're very admirable, but that's not me. I'm more of I know which direction I want to point in. I'm more of okay, this is north, this is where I'm going. And, there's reasonable things that I want to put out there, but I fully expect that as I'm going in that direction, there's going to be different obstacles, and there's always going to be constant course adjustments. So I'm more of a take each day as it comes kind of guy. And my ultimate life plan, the thing that I want to accomplish in life is, I think we're most fulfilled when we're serving other people. And so, I want to, have fun. I have vision for my business and things like that. But ultimately, as long as I'm making sure I'm serving people and, pursuing whatever vision's in my heart, that's my life plan. And
So the day you start the business, you got no money. You got no money coming in, right? Did you sit and say, I'm going to try this for 2 years, or I'm going to try this for 3 years. If it doesn't work, I'll give it my all, and then I'll do something else? Or was there any kind of time horizon you gave yourself?
I think ours was just go at it until you drive it into the ground. Either it's going to work or, it's not going to. That's kind of our concept. No matter what failures or any problems that we have, we'll just run through it, and kind of and it stresses us to death. I mean, trust me, we're up into the middle of the night trying to figure out coverage sheets, and we don't even know what our pricing is sometimes. And just anything, any problems, we're gonna ride it to the end. And I think that's something the team, I think I can speak for the team agreed upon, as we started this, okay, we got the 25,000. Let's ride this thing as far as we can, and if it works, awesome, and if it doesn't, it's like Mark Cuban. He said when he was starting this company, he goes, either we're all going to be millionaires or we're going to be poor. So, obviously, we're still waiting to determine what happens with this. But
Well, when we started, we were 3 of us, and we had to convince each other, set a timeline for each other, and the timeline that we came up with for the team was a year. We're going to work for a year and find out what happens. Internally, I had no idea of a timeline because I was busy. I was doing work, and I would keep doing it as long as I could keep doing it, because there was not much of a future ahead. This is my future. We can make it happen. What we make out of it. But once 2 months later, one of the partners left, and the second partner wanted a 6-month window to see how much we can achieve in 6 months. And so I agreed. 6 months. In back end, I'm going to keep doing it, but as for the team, I said, okay, 6 months, we can look at it. And sure, two more months after, when the other partner quit, now the timelines are gone. I can do whatever I want. So, I did talking to my mentors, Pat Enriquez in the back, and Dr. Morris and Nola. We became more diligent about evaluating and tracking milestones and stuff I've done over the last 6 months, last 3 months, and looking at how much I've achieved versus how much I had established, set up milestones to be achieved. So we consciously monitor and strategize to make sure that we achieve the goals we set to achieve, and there is some value being created. It's not that I'm just busy working and nothing is happening.
Did you make any kind of promise to the wife about how long you were going to try this thing?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Enough time around fart candles. Lose the ability to focus.
yes, I know, that brain cells. Our situation
By the way,
was,
how much R&D went into that fart candle?
a lot of nights at Taco Bueno, Dixie Dips and Chips. No, it was, actually it took 3 revisions that our chemist that makes our fragrances, the first sample he sent, I said make it smellier. He's like, okay. So he sent me the second one. I'm like, smellier. We want this thing to, melt paint and right off the wall. So he sent me a third one, and I was like, you got it. It's terrible. It took 3 times, to get it right, but it's nasty. It's great. This question, we're a little different from the first 2 answers because we really didn't have a partner. I mean, my wife absolutely was my partner in this thing, but we didn't have a third party involved where there was accountability to. We were very, for lack of a better word, I guess, vain on what we thought we were going to be millionaires, and my view as I've matured as a business owner is much more in the realistic terms now. I was surrounded by a lot of yes men and people that really didn't have my my best interest, I don't think, in mind. They wanted to just rah around me and filled my head with a lot of stuff that really wasn't accurate. So we thought at first that this is going to be, we're going to hit it big, hit the jackpot. So we didn't set a time frame. We just went out there and just started working and got after it. And as time went on, reality sunk in. It's like, okay, this isn't going to be the overnight successes in the ShamWow. We're going to have to really work at it. And then at that point, we did go in and we've set 2 timelines. The first one expired. We said if we didn't hit a certain level of success, we were going to go ahead and call it quits. But as that timeline started to draw near and we looked at everything, we're like, well, maybe our timeline wasn't accurate. We need to maybe extend it more. And we extended it, and we're glad we did, because if we hadn't had, if at the time where we got the phone call for Shark Tank about 3 weeks after our timeline was up. So if we would have quit in the middle of September of 2010, we would have not been in a position to carry on with Shark Tank. It took us to the next level. So, I believe in timelines because they motivate you, but you have to review it at the time of completion and decide if that's really the choice you want to make, because your situation is very different. If you set a 2-year time frame, your situation is very different, when you set it than when it comes to completion.
I don't have any timelines, no. It's, I think, you know, it's not over till it's over, you know. And you know, obviously in my situation, it's even more just, you know, it's not any one particular idea. You know, I think Juvo itself, it's probably gone through 3 kind of different personality changes, kind of, you know, kind of adjusting and moving and readjusting but okay, so even if, you know, there's no more adjustment room left, okay, so put Juvo aside, what's next? And so I think that's kind of where the entrepreneurial spirit comes in. You know, you have a spirit and a body, and the body is a particular incarnation of the entrepreneur. So right now, my entrepreneurial spirit is incarnated in Juvo, but you know, if Juvo, if that goes wherever it goes, then there's going to be something else. You know, it's not so much any particular you know, manifestation of it. It's just, you know, you just constantly go. So,
Okay. What do you got? Yes, ma'am.
Throughout the night, you've all kind of said, start a business now, what will you ever lose? Would you guys see any downfalls with entering the corporate world first, or?
No, I mean, I think it really depends on where you're at. I mean, if you have the knowledge, like let's say you want to start a business making faucets or something like that. I mean, if you have no knowledge about that, you know, you can go out and learn it. Or selling, it really depends where you're at, I guess, as a person. I know that's kind of bland.
Well, you know, going back to the start of the lecture where Dr. Morris talks about opportunity cost. Yeah, I mean, both are choices you have, and certainly both are good choices. And you can go the corporate route and maybe do good in corporate. But if you go back to all the successful entrepreneurs and you ask them the question, if you had started sooner, would you start sooner? Absolutely yes, because you lose the opportunity cost. If you started sooner, maybe you would be making more progress, more success, more money, I guess, sooner. So it's a decision you make. And also depends on what you want to pursue as a venture, or if you have an idea yet, or it's subjective. It's subjective, it's a choice you make, but at the same time, there is some cost associated with it.
I would think, you know, all the things that you put up there, if I were to kind of, in my opinion, rank the biggest risk would be the window of opportunity. You know, going into corporate America, you know, if the particular opportunity you'd be looking at, you might be missing the window. I think that's probably the biggest risk, in my opinion. The biggest gain would be also depending upon your industry and the opportunity. You know, some industries are intricate, and you'll be well served to learn as much as you can on another person's time. I think that, in my opinion, that'd be the biggest gain and the biggest risk.
It all comes down to, in my opinion, the experience level you have when you make that decision. You know, if you have a business degree and there are skills that you already have at the time of graduation that you can apply into your, you know, the two-year company that you start, you're going to be at a good position. If you don't have that education, if you don't have the skills already to be successful and know what you need to do, and I think the corporate, you know, the corporate setting can be a good classroom for you. You can learn, you know, basic accounting practices, sales practices. There's so many things that become valuable that if you don't have the opportunity, you know, of the education, that's where you need to get it. You know, you're in a position right now at OSU, you're gaining all of those tools right now, and you're getting that knowledge. So where, you know, your situation is very different than someone that, you know, isn't attending these classes and isn't receiving those benefits.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a lot of college students, people starting out and they're doing their careers, have to survive off of a small budget in the bare minimum. So starting your business in college or soon after, has that mindset or experience helped you manage your money in the beginning?
Yeah, very carefully. You know, like, are you talking about personal money or money with the company?
Yeah, how personal experiences affected how you spend your
Money in the company.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. You know, whether you can work around like we deal with a lot of equipment, so whether it's, you know, trying to repair it or buying a new one, you know, every decision that you make that involves spending money, you know, our goal is to definitely use as less as possible, clearly.
It absolutely makes a difference. So right now you're on campus, you can leverage the computer lab, you can leverage different places on campus to get stuff done. So you are in that mode where you have the tendency, if you want something, you're going to try and find it somewhere rather than go and buy it for yourself. As a small business, a new venture that has no money to begin with, you get really good at leveraging stuff. So yesterday I was at an export seminar. To be in that export seminar, it cost $1,200. How much I paid? $120. Because I found the agencies that are willing to help local companies to do this. So likewise, you get really good at leveraging resources. Riata Center. So initially when the business started, my office was a cubicle in Riata Center for almost a year and 4 months. Then we moved to the hatchery and I was there for almost a year. We didn't pay any rent from we started till October of last year. So it just helped. It's critical. Actually, it's absolutely critical that you're able to channel what you have and leverage the resources around you to gain value for your venture. Because the venture goes through this initial stage where you will have to be extremely cautious, cash flow wise, resources wise, knowledge wise, information wise, to go over that hump where you can actually sustain yourself.
And you can't be afraid to, give things away, sacrifice some profits in the beginning. We kept our company in our house for our first year of the business, and for a retail product and trying to get exposure for wholesale, you really have to have advertising. We did a lot of local things in Tulsa, radio, television. We gave a lot of stuff away. You kind of have to set pride aside at the moment and say, well, I know my product is worth making a profit on, but in the beginning, if it's a service industry that you're going into, you want to create a service-based business. You can't be afraid to, give some business away, because that is leverage for you. You might not have, the funds to get a radio ad, but if you can provide them something. I have a friend that has a vehicle wrap company. He traded radio advertisements on a radio station in Tulsa for doing a vehicle wrap. His product cost was very minimal to wrap that. Most of the money in his business is in labor. He did not have the capital, though, to pay for that ad, so he leveraged what he had and ended up getting some great advertising out of it. And that advertising went into business that he could make profit on.
I think in my experience, just taking the personal to the business, there's time. I have many friends that I don't know how many times that they have $10,000 sitting in the bank. And, during that first 3-year period, they'd have $10,000 sitting in the bank, and I'd have 100. And they just felt like they were broke, that they were at the bottom, and I'd have to buy them lunch, and to cheer them up, So it really helped me overcome looking at the needle on the bank account as the indicator for, can we keep going? Because, in my personal life, it was down on the bottom. I've had a quarter in my bank account more times than I want, but that meant, I know that I want to keep going, and so I had that in my personal life. That you just keep going. That's not the end of it. But until you've kind of hit that and you understand that life does continue, then you can map that over into your business. And I think a lot of times people could throw in the towel too early because they're looking at that needle rather than, And then what happens is once you are not afraid of looking at that needle, then it's like, how are we going to solve this? Then you pull up that creativity. Then you start doing the guerrilla stuff. Well, how are we going to leverage things? And so I think it helps shift your mindset from making that your indicator. So that's important to look at, but don't make that your basis.
Can I add one thing on that? And being an entrepreneur gives you so much flexibility to overcome those obstacles. There's been times in my company where the man candle wasn't paying the bills, but because of that entrepreneurial spirit that I have and that desire to succeed, you can go out and do other things that you couldn't do if you were tied down to a day job or to a night job. Me and my wife, our first year of the company, we were janitors. At the company, I quit. And that was a very humbling experience to go in and empty the trash cans and clean the toilets of your previous employees that you worked with, some of them who reported to you. And we were able to position ourselves through that rocky time because we never lost that drive. And we feel very secure where we've been at the point where we have, $100 in the bank account, but we know that our destiny is in our hands. And if we need some money, we go out and we figure out a way how to make it, whether it's a special product for somebody or it's a completely different service altogether. You're in control.
Shway, you not only have nothing coming in, but you were working all week on the business and then working in a convenience store for how long?
I think 15 months in the
Every
venture.
weekend?
Every weekend. Yeah, leave Friday at noon, work on the venture from Monday to Friday as much as I can. Leave Friday at noon, drive to Tulsa, work 35 hours, drive back Sunday night, wake up, go back to work on the venture Monday. 15 months. And that's what you do, because as a student, you have a life, you do that stuff as a student anyways, so it kind of fits in if you start your business right out of college, because your lifestyle is simple. You don't have that many expenses, you're used to working odd jobs, odd hours, it's okay, so it kind of fits right in.
Who else? That's right.
We all can agree that you guys have the entrepreneurial mindset, but by starting a business right out of college, how do you see yourself as a manager, somebody who is managing the daily responsibilities of the business in terms of managing people, managing resources?
I'll start off break order here. That is the hardest thing that I've ever had to, in my whole experience, that's the hardest thing. I was always, the team leader in school projects, then at Pneumatics, I was, managing projects, but being the boss, being the owner of things, it changes things. And see, like right now, there's something really fundamentally simple, but as an employee, it's really easy. You can look at the boss and you can just see everything they're doing wrong, and it's so obvious to you. But the thing is when you, just by changing position, like right now, you're facing me and I'm facing you. You can see things that I can't see very easily, and I can see things that you can't see very easily. And whereas before, oh, how do I write this resume? And is this a good resume? Suddenly, if I'm reading the resume and it's somebody I want to hire, I know exactly what a good resume looks like and what's one that I'm going to toss immediately in the trash. I didn't go to a class on how to examine resumes. And so just by changing perspective, and in doing that, suddenly I had blind spots that I'd never experienced before. And they're blind spots that because they're blind spots, I didn't even know that existed. And so it was really starting afresh. And so it was very challenging. That was the biggest challenge I had because, it was, and I don't think there's, you can have management classes, but until you're really in that position and you have your own blind spot, because your personality is going to play into it as well as to what your particular blind spots are. So.
And for me, it was necessity. Fight or flight. When you put yourself in that position, you make that decision to quit your job, you make the decision to be your own boss, buck stops with you. And there were things that came out of me that I didn't know were there. Strengths that you don't get tested if you're an employee. You have that safety net. You are able to fail with minimal consequence. If you botch a sale, the worst thing that can happen to you is you get fired, but more than likely your boss is going to slap your wrist or not really say anything at all. You botch the sale when it's your company, you could go out of business. And I think that those fears that are real and the pressure that is real really can drive the very best out of you.
What about this issue, though, of did you know what you don't know when you started a business? Not knowing what an SKU is in a retail business is pretty serious business.
It is.
Not knowing how to set a price, not knowing how to negotiate with a national distribution house. Those are pretty serious shortcomings.
I was able to go in and research, and I spent time to really learn something really fast where the skill, the knowledge wasn't there, but the desire really overrode that. And as an employee in companies I had worked for, I didn't have that same passion. I might have been willing to take less than perfect as an employee, but knowing that confronting something that I didn't know set down a challenge, and I knew that I had to succeed, I had to win, and there, I couldn't take anything less than absolutely going in there and dazzling them. So I put it all out there. I spent all night. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up. I went over the numbers. I went over everything 10 times, where I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't a employee.
I think it goes back to, there's the beauty of being an entrepreneur or somebody that starts a business is that you learn every day. You learn every minute, you learn every second, and an hour later, I have learned so much more about the business, the parts of business, accounting, marketing, doing a contract with a national distributor, making sure that there are provisions in there that ensure that you're protected and it's in your interest and it helps both parties. But everything comes down to the people you have around you. So yeah, sure, I don't know what I don't know, but I do know people around me that do know a lot of the stuff I don't know. And then having the center, having entrepreneurs around me. So when we were in the hatchery, the incubator, we have 6 businesses around you. So if somebody has a problem about setting up a payment, an invoice, I'm sure somebody in one of the 6 businesses has gone through the same problem before, a month ago, a week ago. So we have a solution right there. I won't even have to go to Google or search it. I can ask, hey Max, did you do an invoice a month ago? Can you forward me a copy? I want to create one for my company too. The problem is solved. So and then you have a board of advisors. So when you have big decisions to make, you need to be able to have a board of advisors that you regularly access and use effectively the knowledge that the board of advisors has. You have mentors. You have people around you that that are knowledgeable, that have done this before, that you can go and ask questions about. What is a supplier agreement? What is an exclusive distribution agreement? Because sure, you won't know anything and everything when you start a business, but you definitely will learn a lot. And by putting yourself in a position where you can access all these resources, you increase your chances of being successful.
Who else got a question? Yes.
This regards perceptions from other people and more towards those who started a business just outside of college. Have you ever had any experiences when you started your business right out of college where people had the perception that you're too youthful, they didn't take you seriously, they didn't care to even listen to you, and how did you deal with that?
Well, that happened to me like 240 times this last week.
241 just now.
I definitely, especially when speaking with home builders, you call them up and you're like, hey, we're from Oklahoma State and we just came up with this new product, and you're like, well, I don't know who you are. I've been using my other guy for 16 years. I'm gonna stick with him. That happens all the time, and it's kind of just like one of those things. You work with them, and you can tell kind of at the beginning whether they're going to budge or they're not. And if not, you call them back a month later and just remind them that you're there. And then the ones that do budge, you set up a meeting. You set up a meeting, and like Johnson did, just prepare for that meeting really hard and sell that product right when you get in there. But yeah, that happens all the time, and it's just something. If you expect it, then it just doesn't bother you much. It doesn't bother you as much.
You know what? It happens a lot. It happens to everybody, but it happens especially a lot when you start a business right out of college. So imagine I'm calling a bomb squad in Oklahoma City. I'm saying, "Good afternoon. My name is Shoaib Sheikh. Here to talk to you about some new explosive detection technology. First, I have an accent, and then I'm talking about explosive detection. It's a new company. It's a new technology, but this is the best thing out there." There are these notions where people will doubt you, and then they want to ask, how old is this company? Since when have you been selling this product? And you try and you learn. After the first conversation, you give some answers, and you get feedback, and you take what's good and you cancel what's bad and try to improve on that answer, so the next call I make, it gets better. And then you learn to say that, by the way, I was talking to this guy, this bomb squad commander in Oklahoma City, and he referred me to call you. And that takes care of a little bit of that preconceived notion, so you already read it through somebody. So that's one emphasis. You improve your pitch and you improve your approach. The other is you put yourself in a position where it doesn't seem to be the case. So in our case, we created a really good website with really, really not, it looked like a really, compared to our competitors, it looked a lot better. So there were having times when I called some people, they called me back, it's for sale, and I said, I can ship this to you tomorrow. And then the guy calls me back and he's like, we were wondering if you can sell, what would it take for you to make 1,000 of these? So it'll take us a month. And he's like, he wants to know why, because he wants to see how quickly I can do this. I'm like, we're a small team, so it'll take us a month. He's like, looking at your website, I could have never known that this was a small company. So you do these small things over time. You learn from experience. You talk to your advisors, you talk to your mentors, and you can get away from that inexperience, lack of credibility. And it's different. Like in this last month, I was in DC, and I'm meeting this big consultant about getting a Department of Homeland Security certification for our product. So I'm talking to this guy on the phone. Everything's great. The guy knows me, I guess, because we've been talking. I show up in his office in a suit, and he looks at me, and I introduce myself, and you see the look on his face. He's like, "Really?" I mean, good or bad. It just, yeah.
Yeah, I think that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say preparation. I think is really the main factor because I go out to a lot of wholesale shows, and I go to every major one in the market, and we're at these booths, and you see startup companies right next. Okay. That you see startup companies right
That
next.
was one of the women that are after.
That they're going through the same struggles, and they're older. I think that anyone going into a new company, a new business, without credibility is subject to certain persecutions. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that are older than I am, and they suffer the same type of issues. And if you are younger, like in my case, I do get that sometimes. People, I'm much more in the public eye than a lot of companies. You go to my website, it's the same way. You won't see a lot of pictures of me. You won't see me advertising my youth. But because of my exposures, that's well known. I'm very transparent, and it's all been performance. When I first started, my first store, I already had a TV spot, and I had to leverage that. So I think that if you are a younger person, you just have to try harder than your competitors, because more than likely a lot of them are set in their ways. They're not as going to be aggressive, as hungry as you are, and I've never lost a client because of my age. I've lost them because either I wasn't prepared, I couldn't match their prices, I didn't have what they were looking for, but never because I appeared young.
I like to, I didn't start mine outside of college, but I think it goes back to, lacking experience, lacking knowing what you don't know, all that. And one of the things I tell people is the one thing you need is that first customer, that first client, or whatever that believes in you. You just need that start. And I think that, there's a match out there. He went to that first store, and that wasn't a match for him. But he went to the second store, and that was a match. And so I think that transparency is very critical, I think, in if you're just honest with people, and you're not trying to be something that you're not, I think, you're going to find people that will meet you where you're at. And so, finding that first customer or that group of customers and just running with it from there.
Who else? Wait a minute.
Do you think it actually helped you guys not knowing what you didn't know? Not knowing how big of a challenge starting your business would be?
Is ignorance bliss?
Yes, in my opinion, ignorance is definitely bliss. When you start your company, you have all these ideas in your head. You've got a lot of motivation and momentum behind you, and you have to realize there's going to be bad days. There's going to be a lot of them, and you have to be able to write them out. If you go back, if I go back and I look at where I was 2009 when we first started at the beginning of the year, I've had a lot of really bad things happen with my company, a lot of disappointments, a lot of bumps, but I weigh it against the positives, and I weigh it against the experiences, I weigh it against my lifestyle. You know, my dad passed away with cancer in January. Because I was self-employed, I was able to stay with him in the hospital from the time we admitted him first until when he passed away. And that is invaluable to me. And the fact that I was in that position where I could run my company, at least most of it, in the hospital waiting room, I would never change that. And you know, you have to weigh the pros and cons, you know, when you go into a company. Are you willing to have bad days? There's some people that have a hard time with failure and have a hard time with having bad days. They don't want it. And I don't think that they are successful as entrepreneurs. But if you're willing to take the bad to get the good, you know, you're always going to look back and be happy with what you did.
And I think, like, through my experience, it seems like nothing will ever go, I mean, you'll plan it, and I can't tell you how many times we've written our business plan. I think it's like 4 or 5 now, and nothing goes according to plan. So like you're saying, being prepared, you know, we thought we were prepared for this, and then something changes, and it almost gets into the cycle of growing a business. You know, you plan ahead for this month. Like I wrote a plan for the rest of this year, for example, the other day. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is a good outline, and it looks pretty, but, you know, this isn't really going to happen. This order is not going to come in time. And if you just, the more you experience that, the more you realize that that's just the cycle of a business. That's just how it works. And being a business owner is coming around those challenges. You know, if you don't know it, learn it. If it doesn't happen on time, reschedule it. And just working around those challenges. And I think that's really what keeps you going.
Well, in some cases, it helps a lot. So not knowing what you are really going against or going for, in some cases works. An example I can give you is SBIRs, Small Business Innovation Research Contracts. Very difficult to get, very stringent rules, regulations. A lot of companies that applied for the first time don't get it. A lot of companies that keep applying for 2 years, 5th, 7th, 8th time don't get it. The success rate is less than 10% on these. And in our case, we, not knowing all these statistics behind it, we went with the notion of, let's do it. Let's apply for a contract. Let's see what we can do. We definitely worked hard because we had no idea about it. We had nobody in our team or around us that could give us information on how to draft this proposal. So we spent a lot of time, we worked hard, and we were able to get a contract. The second proposal we put in, we got a contract. We went to DC. This is October 2010. We're sitting in that office at a kickoff for this contract. So they're bringing all the people that all over the country that got contracts with the Department of Homeland Security. They put a big map up there, and they go, the last 14 years, we've received so many applications from so many states, and so many people have received it. Oklahoma, they had 1 contract and 14 applications over the last 14, 17 years. The number 2 was us last year. We go back again this year, in October. And now we have 4, a number 4 on that map for Oklahoma, and 14 applications. The 3 is us, the last 2 years. So the thing is, if we had known some of the statistics behind it, we wouldn't have pursued it. We would have said, you know what, let's not waste our time, we're not going to get it, let's not do it. But that thing that we did now has us on the map, not just from a cash flow perspective, but now we have 3 contracts for a 2-year-old company. That brings so much credibility for our customers and other agencies. So it opens a lot of other avenues for us, where a company comparable to us, 10 years in business, can't really compete with us on this credibility research standpoint because we have this great track record, which happened by chance, I guess, not looking at the statistics.
I'd say there's such a thing as constructive ignorance. I think there's things that you are constructive for you to be ignorant of, and then there's things that are detrimental for you to be ignorant of. And so, for example, if I were to imagine that, you know, before Apple came out with the iPhone and, you know, the kind of company it would take to bring such a concept to market, that would just be insurmountable. To try to imagine trying to make Apple that would just be mind-blowing, it'd be defeating and things like that. So if you were to, and just as with anything in life, if you really knew ahead of time, it would cause you to take a different path. But so there's ignorant things that are good to be ignorant of, things that would try to tell you that you can't be this, that it's too much or whatever. But things that you shouldn't be ignorant of are things that are areas of danger and things that of what you can be. You don't want to be ignorant of how you can be a great salesman. You don't want to be ignorant of the things that make somebody successful in your industry and things like that. So there's, you want to make sure that your ignorance is constructive.
Who else? Go ahead.
Dr. Lawrence raised this point before, but I would like to hear what you guys think about that. What would you do tomorrow if you fail?
Start something else. I have a book of all these ideas, and I think, and I think that the school of entrepreneurship, and I'm not doing this to brown nose or anything, really sparked the entrepreneurial spirit, because I always kind of had it, and now when I look back, I see where everything fit into place. But I'd start something else. And like I said before, if it just failed tomorrow, okay. I'm 24 years old. I'll just start something else, do something else, and run with that.
Well, failure is subjective. So when you say fail means the business just disappears, like it just dies? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Well, it's not going to happen, right? Because we keep working at it. We keep working on mitigating risk. We keep working on different channels, different avenues. And you fail every day. So I called 20 people today to make a sale. 10 says, don't call me back. The other 5 said, okay, call us back in a month. The other 2 said, we interested, but we not quite yet. Not quite yet. Let's see what we can do. So failure is something that happens on a daily basis, and you embrace it. You take that feedback and you mitigate and you plan to avoid these calls. So tomorrow, if I can make calls and I can improve my success rate on these calls using the feedback I received today, I'm building off of that. So the way I look at it, failure is critical. You need failure. You need these moments where it just beats you up, and you don't want it to happen again. You want to go next, moving forward. Sure, that shouldn't happen again. You work at it. So I guess I don't see it as failing. Yeah, something might not work, but we do too many things for everything to fail. And even if that fails, we still do something else to make it happen.
My second business was better than my first business. And my now third business is better than my second business. I look at failure, for me to be considered to fail is to give up, is to lose the desire to move forward in life. The companies that I had, partly were my fault, partly were economic conditions. One of my companies had a brick and mortar game and hobby shop, and the mall went out of business. They closed down. I didn't have the courage and the strength to take that company and move it to another location. I decided to go into corporate America for a few years, and I thought that, okay, well, maybe this is what I want to do. When I went into my third company, I took everything that I had learned, both the good and the bad from the first two, and I shaped it into this one. I'm so much stronger in my third company than I was in my second or first. And if and when the original Man Candle goes under, or we decide to close it down, or it just blows up because it's a nasty fart candle and it explodes everywhere, and I go in and I start my fourth venture. I have faith, and I have I have the understanding that I've taken everything over these last 2.5 years, and that's just going to make me even stronger.
These guys are smart.
Just failed a lot.
We dwell on the downside, which is good to a point, but I know each of you has gone through a lot of shit, and lawsuits, distributors stringing you along for 12 months, key accounts that you lose, that you thought you had long term or whatever. What gets you off? What's the good? The thing that when you set and go, yes.
I ultimately control my destiny. I am building my dream, not my employer's dream. You know, I've got a vision. I might not have all of the answers. I know I don't have all of the answers right now, but I know that my commitment to bettering myself, bettering my family, you know, bettering the people that are involved around me is going to be that driving force to keep on, because there are a lot of bad things that happen. That I've got a lawsuit right now, a partner that's not working out, and I get to go to arbitration in Indiana next month. That's not fun, but I know it's not the end of the world. I know I'll get through it because I'm in control, and that I am going to do everything I can to be the best that I can be, and I'll get through it.
I love, and you stated on this earlier there, you have nothing. You literally have nothing. And the idea is literally like an invisible thing that you think you can hold in your hand. And building that into a company, I mean, 6 months later, you have a warehouse. And then what gets my drive is building stuff up. That's what I'm motivated for, is building. And then I think to myself, well, gosh, 2 years from now, what else could happen? We could be in 8 different states. And that's what I think keeps me going, is just the drive of building something from the ground up. I love it. It's an adrenaline rush. It has its ups and its downs, and I'm very passionate about that.
Extreme sport.
Oh yeah, exactly.
We've done these video testimonials. So we'll sit clients down, and it's we have a little flip camera. So we'll just ask. We have 5 questions we'll ask them, and so we just go through and we just record what they say. And every one of these video testimonials that we've said, they all are like, look, Juvo gets us. They took the time to listen to us, and the result is exactly what fit, what we needed, what we wanted. It's a home run. And so to me, that's what gets me going. Just like, again, the company, it's a two-sided participation. It's our side buying into what we're trying to do, and it's the other side, also buying in. And so seeing that what we're doing is getting conveyed, that is being received, that's being transferred, that kind of completes the loop for me. I enjoy doing this, but when I see that it connects on the other side, that's where I get fulfilled.
I think the coolest part about doing all this stuff is you get an opportunity to do whatever, and you set your own goals, so to speak. So you can pursue opportunities and options that typically people with the normal traditional thing say that's not possible. And achieving these is what's really exciting. People have been around me, Lindsay, Kale, you see me. Big sale happens, this happens, yeah, we high five, it's fine. I'm not really, but the days I'm really excited when we do something that nobody else has done before. So the SBIR contract, that was cool, because nobody else, no new company or no small company had done that. Getting the visa done, that was cool. Getting a phase 2 contract, which is unheard of, and that was cool. So it's money and all that stuff comes with it, which is fine, and people shake your hands and everything. But the days I'm really excited about is when I'm sure nobody else, no other company in this field can say when we achieve this one thing. So yesterday we got the 2 awards contract. I went back, I looked at it. Last 10 years, there's no company that has got 2 awards contract in the same round. So that was cool. And just getting these milestones and just energizes you, and you want to now look for the next cool thing that you can do.
One last question. Yes, sir.
I have a question about your work-life balance, your work-life balance, because he says we have all this freedom in college. Does that pretty much get all taken up if you're starting a business college back? So I can probably say yes, I did with you, because I was just trying to hang out and do work. But the rest of you.
Balance, huh?
Yep. Yeah, everyone says, when you start your own business, you're like, oh yeah, you get to pick your own hours. It's like, oh yeah, you work 2 hours a day. No, you work every hour of the day. You work, I can't tell you how many times, especially my last semester here, we were preparing for the business plan, up all night. We'd stay up 2 nights in a row, just preparing for it. I mean, still past that, even in the operational phase when we're making the product, you know, we'll get an opportunity to do a bid for a housing development, and we'll stay up until 2, 3 in the morning making sure our numbers are right. You know, do we have enough product? How long would it take us to make this product? So, yeah, it definitely affects. I can tell you my wife now doesn't. She's like, I didn't know you'd be working until 3 a.m. And I'm like, what? I told you this, And so it definitely affects it, but it needs to be done to succeed.
Well, it's a great life. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, you work as long as you can, then you go hang out with your friends, and you go to sleep, you wake up and go to work again. It's a really simple work-life balance for me. I make it an important point that I show up to work every morning, no matter what happens the night before. So I might go home at 5 or 4 or 3, not really working, maybe out. But the goal is to be back at work. 8:30, 9, you gotta be at work. You gotta put your 10 to 12 hours in that day. And right now, the point being, I'm the only one in the company. So the day Shoaib is not in the office, the company is not open. So it will change over time, but I don't see my hours changing. 8:30 to 7:38, and that's why you see me walking at 8 o'clock. Typically in dilemmas and debates, I'm walking in at 8 o'clock, right when the speakers are answering questions with students. Office is closed, and after 8 o'clock, get some food, hang out with your friends, enjoy, and go back. I mean, it's a great life.
It really is, and it's I enjoy I enjoy being able to have the flexibility of working where I want to work from, and even though I don't get set my hours, being in the Midwest, we've got other time zones you have to factor in also. I mean, at 8 o'clock in Tulsa, it's 7 o'clock in the morning in New York, so you have to,
Not
no, 9 o'clock, sorry, long night. And then in LA, it's 6 o'clock. So, you have to be able to put yourself in a situation to win and to be open, because it's true. If you're the only one in the company, if you take a week vacation, you can't turn your phone off. What happens if a client calls you? What happens if there's a problem? Your plant's on fire, you've something critical has happened. You have to be able to respond. We like to, me and my wife like to travel, and that's been one of our hardest transitions, of being able to continue to travel what we like, because we travel a lot more than we used to. But I'm always tied to the hip now on my phone, my iPad, my laptop. We work a lot of hours. We put in 12, 14 hours is no problem, and that's not manufacturing the product anymore. We used to hand pour all of our candles ourselves. I used to have an air mattress at my shop, and I wouldn't even get to go home at night, and my home was only 4 miles from my shop. It's just that it was a constant thing. The orders were coming in, and there was no one to pass the buck to. As time's gone on, we have people now that manufacture the product for us, so we're not in there physically pouring it, but the business has scaled up so high. There's, I've got 120 sales people out in the country. They're managed by 5 sales managers, managed by 2 sales managers. It's a lot of people out there that are looking to you for answers. And we're right now in a position of trying to get someone to be a full-time, receptionist or a operations manager that can handle some of that. Because even though we've brought in more people, since we've scaled up, my workload's higher now, and this, there's just not anything you can do about it.
I would say kind of 2 things about that. I went from the home office to a full-on office, and at the home office, all my friends were, well, you're a consultant, you can make your own hours, and so I actually had the problem of my life bleeding into my work, and struggling to find out how to set those boundaries. And because, in the middle of the afternoon, people would call expecting me to help them, give them a ride somewhere. It's like, well, I'm trying to work, And so there was a problem with life trying to bleed into work. And so having an office helped establish those boundaries. No, I'm sorry, I'm at the office. And so, okay, oh, you're at the office. Oh, you're working. Oh, okay, that's what you're doing. So there's that kind of an issue. But the other side of it is, as entrepreneurs, and I've definitely suffered from this myself, we're Superman, right? We can do it. And it does require that you be the guy, having their mattress and stuff like that. But you need to also be very diligent to get out of that as fast as possible, to outsource yourself, to reproduce yourself, so that you can have friends and a life. And at the very least, if you won't even accept that, at least say for the health of your business, so that something happens to you, that your business can still continue. But you need to get past that, I can do it all and will do it all, because you are limited. You do have, you only have a limited capacity to work with. So find a way as early as you can to reproduce yourself with people. So
Good. So what do we learn?
All right, hi guys, I'm Skylar Brown. From Max, we learned if you ask, they'll tell you everything they know. Go for it with no fear. Don't give up because one thing went wrong. It's a good idea to have a partner because they may pick up where you lack, and nothing goes according to plan, but you have to work around those challenges. From Johnson Bailey, we learned do your research before you enter the market. Wait until you have your financial ducks in a row to start a business. Use what you can for exposure. Example of going on Shark Tank. He believes in timelines because they motivate you. It all comes down to your level of experience, and preparation is the main key.
All right, I took notes over Schwab. I kept trying to practice it in my head, but okay, Schwab. And then also from Derek Wallace. But I'm just gonna go through my notes. It's gonna be all big stuff. But Derek, the best way to stop working for money is to stop working for money. And that was one of the quotes he took from Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's book. And then from Schwab, from the question with Rian when he started his construction company, he was saying to go ahead and go for it now because you have the least amount of responsibilities. So go ahead and fail. You're in college and you have plenty of resources around you. Test out your ideas. The first model may work, it may not work. But go ahead and get your experience in, because what do you have to lose right now anyway? And then from Derek, how do you get the business without the college and experience, and how do you get the experience without the business? Just explaining the catch-22. Kind of you need both. Schwab, entrepreneurs are risk managers, not risk takers. Derek, business is like a vapor, and the only thing that makes a business is the owner or the team and the people that buy into the business. Then from Schwab, launching a business has less risk than looking for a job in his case, because he's an international student, and he managed to find a way to have his own business sponsor him to get his specific visa. Derek, your business is a reincarnation of your own entrepreneurial self. And Schwab again, he said he went to an expo just recently, and his spot was supposed to be $1,200, but he only paid $120 because he found a way to leverage his resources. So again, just emphasizing the fact of leveraging your resources, especially if you plan on starting a business out of college with not a lot of money. Derek, overcome looking at the needle on the bank account as an indicator of your success in business. And then also as you change perspectives, going from an entrepreneur to a business owner, it gives you different blind spots and also gives you a different viewpoint on how to view whatever it is, looking at it from the top versus looking at it from the bottom. But that's it, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Join me in thanking these entrepreneurs.